We have discussed how to build simple programs that can make some decision making, some calculations, that can get some data written as constants and do some computations with that. But we have mentioned before that it's not really enough. In many cases, we need to do some kind of repetitions. For example, we might want to fill some array with values. A naive way to do that would be, for example, to assign some variable I to 0 and then some value to 5 and then declare dictionary D, and we will set key I to val. This will work, but that's only one value. Let's say we want to have several values. We can try copy-pasting this. Dictionary at index 1 will be set to 10, and dictionary at key 2 will have value set to 15, and dictionary at key 3 will have value set to 20. That works. But imagine doing that 1000 times. And especially if there is relation between values that we want to set and the index that can be expressed by equation, as in the case above. How can we handle this in a better way? To do that in programming, we can use loops. We have already discussed how those loops are generally implemented in programming. Let's now talk about Python specifics. In Python, we have syntax that is called for loop. The for loop uses iterators to set some values to some variable. First of all, we need to define what would be the name of our iterator variable. In this case, we can set it to be I. And then we need to tell Python what values it will take. One approach is to define a list of values. In case of the example above, we can do this 0, 1, 2, 3. And we can say that for every I in this value range, in the list, we want to execute equation and set the value of I to val. In our case, val would be equal to 5 plus I times 5, or in the form of code. And as you can see, it produces exactly the same results. However, the convenient part about this form is that we can add new elements to the list. And as we add new elements to the list over which we iterate, we also get new elements in the resulting dictionary. In a similar way, we can remove something. For example, if we don't want to compute values for 2 and 3, we can delete them from the list and rerun the cell. And that works. Please note that for loop is written in a similar way as if statement. That is, we also have indentation of 4 spaces for all statements inside the loop. To make things a little bit more complex in terms of computation, let's say that we want to check if I is greater than 2 on every iteration. If it is, then we compute dictionary value from the equation, as we did before. Else, we assign value to just I without any equation. So, for values of I less than 2, that is for 0 and 1, the value has been actually assigned to I itself correctly, and the resulting dictionary contains 0 in K0 and 1 in K1. And then instead, after that, 25 in 4 and 30 in 5. What other ways of defining for loop we can actually use? Because, let's be honest, manually writing down all possible values is still not a very good solution. One very convenient way is range function. We have already touched it a little bit before, but now let's discuss it in detail. Range is a standard Python generator for numbers. We will again discuss what generators are exactly when we will be talking about functional programming, but for now, let's say that this is a function that can produce some sequences of values. It is a replacement for stepped number sequences in other programming languages. For example, in most other programming languages that are derived from C, you will have for loop written as for I equals to some starting number, and then until I is less than some ending number, you will increment I by some step. This can be achieved with range function. So we just replace our list with range, and let's provide it with start value, end value, and step. And if we run these values, then we see the results as expected. Now we have all possible values for I from 0 to 4. 5 is not included because the range is not inclusive. And we can convert this range into a list of numbers, and that list will contain all numbers from 0 to 4, but not including 5. we can do it with the same statement that we already written before for list creation. And as you can see, it lists correctly all the values that we have actually iterated over. But one good thing about range function is that we really don't have to specify all three arguments. For example, step value of 1 is the default value. So this is the same as having this. So range from 0 to 5 will work exactly the same as from 0 to 5 with step 1, because 1 is by default. And we can check it here as well. Now, another default value is starting value of 0. So if we are going to just execute list range 5, then we also will get the same range. Let's try experimenting some more. Let's have initial value, ending value of 50, and step of 6. So as you can see, we have 0, 6, 12, 18, and all the numbers are basically as expected. However, if you will try to use floating point value in the range, then unfortunately you will find the biggest limitation of range. It doesn't allow floating point steps. And neither it allows floating point values in start and end. So this is a purely integer generator. Another type of loop structure is while loop, which is functioning similarly to for loops, except that it does not really iterate values for a variable. Instead, it has condition that will enable execution of the loop only while that condition stays true. So let's define a new loop with while. To convert our existing for loop into a while loop, we will need to first define the initial value for I before the loop, and then write while I less than our ending value. And then at the very end of the loop, we want to add the increment to our value of I. And this will function exactly as the for loop we had before. But of course, when you have while loops that does this, you really should just use for instead. However, if you, for example, would try to add floating point value to I here, then you will see that it actually works. And so does work the use of floating point values in the condition for end value and floating point value at the beginning. Another frequent form that is used for while loops is while true. And let's say that we want to print 1 in the loop. As you can see, it keeps printing 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 forever, and we had to interrupt the kernel because obviously this loop will never exit because the condition will never become false. It's a constant. So why would someone want that? The thing is that there is another way to break out of the loop, not only by checking the condition for a while loop or by ending the iterable that for loops iterates. You can also exit out of the loop by using break statement. Now, as you can see, the loop executed exactly once, and once it's reached the break statement, it left. Similarly, we can say that we want to exit out of this loop once I hits value greater than 2. And this works as we expected. So this while loop iterates 1, 2 times, and once it hits value of 2, it stops. This also works for for loops. And you can basically utilize this to make very complicated condition checking that would otherwise be not so easy to implement. For example, let's use one of the other standard Python libraries, datetime, to get a while loop that will exit after it has been executed for exactly 10 seconds. Well, maybe not exactly, but within the precision of our time measurements. So first of all, we will import datetime module as dt variable, and then we will use the following statement, dt.datetime.now. This statement and this function will return always the current time of your system clock on your computer. As you can see, as I run it, it gets bigger and bigger. Now we can save this value here at the beginning of the loop. And in the loop, I can instead add a new check. So I want to check if there is difference between the current time and start time and the amount of total seconds in that difference is greater than 0, greater than 10, then I want to actually exit this loop. So let's try. And as you can see, this time this loop terminated itself successfully. So what's happening here? This dateTimeNow function returns the current time, and the same process happens here. And this variable keeps the value that we had right at the beginning before we started the while loop. And this construct, the difference between two timestamp structures in Python, it produces a new object that is called time delta. And time delta object has a function, total seconds, that will report the size of the time delta in seconds. And then we do simple comparison. We check the amount of seconds and we compare it with constant value of 10. So on every iteration, we get current time, we subtract the starting time, and we get the amount of seconds passed from the beginning. And this results in this exit from the loop. This kind of loops are quite often used in user interface applications or any other application where you will expect the user starting the program and then providing some input continuously or until user sends some signal to exit the program. For example, by pressing a button like this at the upper right corner of every program, there is this close button. The close button is a condition to stop the program. Otherwise, there is a while loop. Inside every program that runs continuously, there is some place where there is this construct, and the program will run until user stops it by sending the exit signal. In this case, we have just written a program that will close itself after some time. This might be a good skeleton for a program that is going to be a timer, for example.